a lot of what you might think is being your authentic self is actually past programming from your childhood that you're actually living from, whether it be trauma or just a type of indoctrination from your
That's right.
parents' wounds. So you're actually not really living based off your authentic self. You guys, welcome to another episode of the Patriots Table. Today we have a special guest with us. Today we have Eli Bowman. Now, Eli is a top-selling author, a keynote speaker, and a seven-figure entrepreneur who specializes in helping high performers break free from unconscious programming that's keeping them stuck. It's a really big thing in today's world. He's the creator of the Path of Purpose framework, which is a system that guides people from unconscious living to authentic impact. Eli, welcome to the show. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Trey.
So,
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
I mean, you quite a resume on what you've done, and talk about authenticity and breaking unconscious framework. And this has been something that's at least I'm in the millennial generation. This is really big right now, talking about
Yeah.
breaking patterns and what authenticity looks like, which has a lot of misconception about what authenticity is, because a lot of people don't really know that a lot of what you might think is being your authentic self is actually past programming from your childhood that you're actually living from, whether it be trauma or just a type of indoctrination from your
That's right.
parents' wounds. So you're actually not really living based off your authentic self. So I just want to give you the mic and let you, what's your initial takes on what authenticity is before we really dive deep into it.
I appreciate that, Trey. Thank you for that and for that introduction. Um, Man, authenticity is kind of everything. It's a big word. It kind of casts a big net. And you had mentioned in the intro, you had mentioned like patterns and pattern interrupts. They're so powerful. So, and to me, it's an appendage of authenticity. Um, but to answer your question, oh man, authenticity, it's so hard to know where to begin, it's like one of those eternal concepts. It's like without beginning of days or end of years, it's,
Right, right.
um, but it's really just a matter of, are you really, do you know who you are? Do you have a self-awareness? And a lot of the work that I do is really just about increasing that self-awareness. Um, for me, the unconscious mind that's my playground. That's my area of expertise. Because the body of work, NLP or neuro linguistic programming, of which I'm an expert, it concerns itself with the unconscious mind. And like you said, childhood conditioning, uh, programming, our culture, our environment, our religious environment growing up, it's all of it installed programs into us. Now, it's neither good nor bad. It just is, because some of our programming serves us, Trey, and some of it doesn't serve us well. And when we are living a life, and I'm going to bring this home with authenticity. When we're living a life that is where there's some dissonance there, some tension, we may not know why. We just know there is. And we might be confused because we did all the things we're supposed to do. We checked all the boxes of like, this is what good people do or successful people do. And I did all those things. Why am I not happy? Where's my happiness? I checked all the boxes. I did school. I got married. I got a mortgage. I've got kids. Where's just like the promise that I was given? Where's the promise? And the reason that there's a lack of fulfillment there is because the life that we're living in that circumstance lacks sufficient authenticity. It's pervasive. The unconscious mind, by its very nature, is below our conscious awareness. So how can we know what to fix if we don't even know the thing can need fixing at all, right? So
Right.
very hard to nail down. And so a lot of my work is about bringing that self-awareness up so that people can look in the mirror and honestly say, am I living an authentic life? Am I living a life that's my design? Or am I doing things? Am I stuck in habits? Am I stuck in systems? Am I stuck in loops that weren't of my making? Am I following a map that someone handed to me when I was born? A map where you didn't choose where to start, you didn't choose where it's ending, and you didn't choose the path. You're just living it because that's what the map you were given. And so really when someone is able to look and really take a self-inventory and think, am I being authentic? That when it can answer yes to that question, fulfillment starts to really, really increase at that point. But it takes a lot of work.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, bringing the subconscious mind into the conscious mind, I mean, a lot of, I feel like an element of that is a lot of childhood trauma, which is another thing that's really becoming a really big topic of discussion because when you're dealing with childhood trauma, you disassociate from reality and you push things into the subconscious mind. So then you're pretty much putting a mask on your, whether it be, oh, I wasn't loved the way, so I needed to act this way in order to receive love from my parents or from, guardians or whoever was in your life. So then you're giving up a piece of your authentic self. You're disassociating from a piece of your authentic self to be accepted and be loved. And people don't even really recognize that you know, until they're older, they're even going down this journey. And do
Yeah.
you see that a lot as well with what you do?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The For sure. And self-awareness is an ever, it almost feels when you're experiencing it, you know it. And when you're not, you're just going through the motions. And that's when life feels like, oh, it's been like the same thing forever. I just I feel like my life has been like the same 6 months on repeat over and over and over again. Um, that's when you know, okay, maybe I lack the ability to see what's happening here.
Right.
But
I mean,
but a lot of times we need help. Um, I know I did. Like I we don't just stumble into, oh, I need to work on my unconscious mind or my unconscious programming. It's not something we accidentally discover. It's usually something that we usually receive, like we take in an input, a piece of media, a book. We see someone speak, or we see a podcast like yours, and the that sparks something in us. So I think these conversations are important because just talking about unconscious programming and active loops and patterns, this is enough to start. This is like a catalyst. It could be the spark that really sets aflame someone's ability to look inward and say, okay, what's going on with me? What's going on with my life?
well, and I think a big part of that too, I mean, a lot of people don't start looking inward a lot or look in that mirror and start doing or even attempting self-reflection until you get a point in your life where it's just not working. I'm not happy. You
Mhm.
might have hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
Something, because if stuff's going really well or you think is going really well, you're not going to really think about change because I mean, change people it's built in us. We just don't like change. We don't like doing change. The only time somebody change is when it's more uncomfortable to stay the same than it is to change, right? So
Yes.
seeing getting to the point where it's like I I can't continue living this way. It's almost a
That's right.
desperation thing, like, because self-reflection is normally, like you said, something you stumble upon when you're looking for something to make your life better because it's not working out for you. So it's whether you're watching this episode or see somebody like you online or social media, it's like how can I work through this? It's really it seems like a common denominator. I've never seen somebody who's like, "Oh, I'm on cloud nine every day, living the life that I want to live." Go, you know what? I need to think about my subconscious programming here. So do you work with a lot of people that it's like, I'm just at rock bottom. I have nowhere else to go. I
Yes,
don't know what else to do.
yes, I do. And I really, it excites me when I work when I work with people like that. Someone will tell me when I'm, when I'm, coaching with them, they'll say, "Man, I'll describe rock bottom," and they'll be like, "I'm there. I'm honestly there. This is the lowest I've ever been. I'm pretty unhappy. I wake up every day. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know where my life is going. I'm questioning everything, even foundational things. Like, I don't even know if God is real. I don't know if this marriage is right for me. Very foundational elements of their life." And I look at them and I say, "I'm happy for you." And they go, "Excuse me?" And then I begin to explain that rock bottom isn't a place where we fall to. The gift of rock bottom is it's a foundation to build from. Because when you're at rock bottom, like you said, we're forced to self-examine, because the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change. So what are we going to do? We're going to change. We're going to change something, period, because we can't sustain in that pain forever. We won't do it. We're not creatures that are built for that. So we will change. And the fastest way to change is, I mean, when you're at rock bottom, you quickly realize that you feel powerless. That's part of being at rock bottom, is you feel kind of hopeless and powerless, that anything will change. And so you learn very fast that the only thing that can change right now is you. And it's making personal change. This is where we see a lot of people start to, get into shape for the first time in a long time. We see people, cut bad or toxic relationships out of their lives and start new ones. Or we see them change careers when they've hit rock bottom, or they move cities. They realize that the only fast way to make significant change is for me to change. And so they change. Um, and to your point earlier, we really are, one of my mentors, he often says, sticks and carrots. So we're either led or motivated by a carrot dangling in front of us, or a stick whacking us in the rear end, getting us to try to move. We very rarely will take massive, determined action when we're cozy and comfortable and life is posh and good and easy. It really is when there's either pain, there's the stick, or there's a goal that really lights us up. Which I think, by the way, I think it's important to note here that the only carrot that will really chase in any sort of meaningful way is a carrot that we are desperate to get. Because if it's just, we're just a little hungry, the least bit of resistance will stop chasing the carrot. But
Right.
if it's a carrot that and of course the map across here is meaning, right? It's purpose. So if there's a purposeful enough pursuit, a meaningful enough pursuit, we'll keep chasing. And that is the secret to sustainable progress. And the most potent way to find that elusive, purposeful carrot is to be authentic, is to figure out what you actually believe. Because if you're following the carrot because someone told you to follow the carrot, or it's part of that map that someone handed you, again, when there's enough resistance, you'll stop. But if it comes from in here and it's really something you just refuse to live without, it's something you refuse to not pursue, you'll keep chasing it.
Sounds like you're speaking an element of self-love, because if you're self-love and loving yourself and knowing what's good for you and what you want, and that's part of authenticity is self-love is, you
Yeah,
know, that'll
that's right.
keep you going to the gym when it's hard or it's inconvenient. It's what'll get you to wake up at that 5:30 alarm, 6 a.m. alarm to go do something before work, or you know, do eat right when you
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
much easier to go out to Friday night with the guys and go all that. So, self-love isn't, I guess I should probably put a disclaimer. It's not what society is really chalk self-love to be. Self-love is also holding yourself accountable, is accountability.
100%.
You
Oh
holding
yeah,
yourself accountable
that's
because
real
you
love.
can't rely on other people to hold you accountable. Like
That's right.
I not saying there's not a place for an accountability partner, but if you can't be your own accountability partner, then you don't even trust yourself. Like if you don't
Yes.
trust yourself, then you're not going to grow. So you're literally starting a habitual pattern of almost lying to yourself, and then
Yes.
there's no motivation.
Yeah.
You're setting yourself up for failure at the get-go. So if you're not holding yourself accountable in a healthy way and in a loving way, because real love isn't just patting your, oh, you don't have to do that. Real love is, no, this is what you should be doing, and I
Hmm.
love you, and I'm going to challenge you and push you. That's part of, partnership, and even in a romantic relationships,
Yes.
is pushing and stuff like that. So if you're not doing that to yourself, you're not going to fully walk in that
Do you
authenticity,
really, yeah, if you're not doing
and
that to yourself,
self-love is critical.
do you really love yourself? Yeah. You're absolutely right. I think self-love is a natural fruit of living authentically. And so conversely, what is the fruit of living inauthentically? It's self-loathing. And that we we, we don't see that. We don't go, oh, I loathe myself because I'm living inauthentically. That's not language that the average person uses day to day, but that is the fruit
Right.
of living inauthentically. So I'm glad you said that, because self-loathing leads to self-sabotage, doesn't it? So it truly is, the only way, in my opinion, the only way to really have a deep and abiding love of self is some pretty deep self-examination and just accepting who you are and what you believe and being willing to shed what isn't yours that was given to you. Being willing to let that drop off, assuming it doesn't serve you.
Right. Well, and I would even argue, and I've heard this talked about too, that can you even love anybody else if you don't first learn to love yourself? Because you have to learn
Mm,
to love the parts of yourself that you don't even like that much. And if you can't even do that with yourself, how are you going to do that for your significant other? Because nobody's perfect and nobody's ever going to be perfect. There's going to be ugly parts or even ugly days of and it's not just in romantic relationships. That's any relationship in your life, your inner circle, your outer, that's just humanity in general. So if you can't
yeah.
learn to love even the ugliest parts of people, how uh, you're not going to do that if you can't do it with yourself.
I mean, this is very
And it's
biblical. Like I think about the two great commandments. Love thy neighbor as you love yourself, and also love God. It's you know, the Lord says that it's two great commandments. Really, it's kind of three, because you have to love your neighbor and you have to love yourself, and you have to. So it's like three
but if
different
I
actions.
feel like even people have almost gotten that backwards with the loving your neighbor as yourself. It's almost turned into an ego selfish way. It's like, oh, I want the world, so I got to give people the world, instead of
Mm,
recognizing, no, you need to actually love the ugly parts of yourself, the parts of
yeah,
yourself that you don't like. You need to love in order to actually love them and love them that way too.
yeah,
And we talk about having accountability with yourself and even boundaries with yourself. Like, this does not serve me, so I'm not going to do that. And that's loving myself. So that means doing that with other people and too. If what they're doing is if they're not operating in their true self and they have their own stuff to work through, whether, it's some manipulative patterns or stuff like that, and you have to put boundaries up
Hmm.
because that's actually loving them too, because
Yeah.
you're not enabling that kind of toxic behavior. And you're also loving yourself because it's like, no, that's not for me. That doesn't serve me either. So I feel like even a lot, there's this misconception, even in, the church and a lot of religious groups, that that's kind of backwards to where the unconditional love or love your neighbor as yourself has turned in more to enabling bad behavior instead of what more
Mm.
true authentic
Yeah,
love is,
interesting.
which is, just like you hold yourself accountable and have boundaries with yourself, you do it with other people too, because that's loving yourself and that's also loving them. Because if you're enabling them, you're taking their only opportunity to change their own patterns away from them by enabling it, and that's not love either.
Right. No, it's not. Yeah,
So
that's well said.
just
That's well said. I'm not sure I can add to it.
my own deep thoughts, but I mean, so one thing I'm sure there's because men and women are really different. I want to hit it from different. So assuming you've worked with both men and women and
Yeah.
lots of them. Um, in regards to the rock bottom, do you see a difference in what that looks like from a man's perspective on what's rock bottom for a man and kind of a general, oh, this is what majority of men are looking like, and then what it looks like for women? Do you see a big difference in that with what rock bottom looks like for them?
I do in the sense of usually with men, in the sense of like role execution and role expectations. With men, a lot of it is steeped in career and an unfulfilled marriage. Now, the marriage
Mm,
part is, or relationship part is, universal with women as well. They feel, but whereas with men, they start to feel confined. They start to feel like they missed out on exploring that aspect of themselves, the dating world, multiple partners. And that brings a lot of heaviness and resentment. So with men, it tends to be career focused, like really honestly purpose focused. A lot of times men are,
mm,
are are aimless, and they're aimless because they're purposeless in their day-to-day work. Um, and so like of course that can only last for so long. And with
right.
women, it is kind of, I it tends to be the expectations of their role in their family environment. So whether that's they feel like they're not a good mom, or like their children are failing and so they feel like failures, or their marriage is failing so they feel like they're failing. Um and but really, the common denominator between the two is the breakdown of relationships, particularly the breakdown of the family, and them feeling like it's either their fault or that they're being confined by whatever the circumstances are in the home.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, and I know a lot of guys where rock bottom for them was when they actually lost the woman of their dreams because of their
Hmm.
own
Yep.
there was none of that self-reflection going on, so they had their own
So they lash out.
toxic behaviors, patterns and stuff, and they lose themselves in relationship, and they end up losing the one, their queen, the person that they actually
That's right.
did want. But then it's like you lose it, and then you have, when you're sitting there by yourself, it's like, yeah, now I got to do something. And
And
women, it's more.
all of that behavior trait is a search for, who am I? I know that sounds very nebulous, but really it's men. Let's just talk about men for our moment. It's men who aren't sure of what they believe, who they are, and what they're doing in their life. somewhere along the line, those pillars are cracked or broken completely. And so the the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change. So they change, but they change in destructive ways. They step out on their in their they step out of their relationship, and they break that covenant, or they completely sabotage their life in some other way. They might quit their job without consulting with their wife, and they have no plan thereafter. Or they might go to substances because they're getting a temporary relief from using a drug, or it could be alcohol. Um, all of this is a desperate effort to find authenticity and to find purpose and meaning in their life. It really is. I wish my wish for all men would be like, find something that sets your soul on fire, that's aligned with your values and what you truly believe. Find a way to pursue that, get creative, and find a way to make it sustainable financially for you. You build a business around it or something. And then every day doesn't feel like drudgery when you get up to work. It feels like you get to work. It's an opportunity to just continue in your purpose. And then there's really no deconstruction of, there's no self-destructive behavior for men when they are in the pursuit of something they believe is worth pursuing. And that's my wish for all men, is that they could find that.
And one thing I've noticed is when men can transform the toxic patterns in their life and use that for good, that is actually what really they find their purpose in. It's that transformation of, if you, let's say you were really manipulative or something along those lines, you transform that, and man, you're a therapist and you're helping people navigate their problems and helping get them to see things. Like, it's like the stuff that really can align with somebody's purpose is actually when you take that ugly part of yourself that you didn't like, that you had to work on, and you transform that. And like you said, you can build a business around that. I mean, you pursue that, and people get really successful in that. And it's almost like, whether you believe in God, universe, whatever you believe, like, you can see something driving behind that than just, oh, I decided to, go talk, go do
Mm.
events, so it's really interesting to see. And I think that really ties in with that authenticity, because when you're able to change that and find purpose in it, then you're walking in that authentic self. And there's just something about that frequency of being your authentic self that stuff has to happen. It's just things
Yes.
are going to align, doors are going to open for you, and you find yourself, because you're getting rid of all that baggage in your life, you find you're noticing doors open. I think a lot of people, nothing's happened in their life because they're not present in the moment and present in the situation, that they're not even noticing the opportunities in front of them.
That's right.
They're not
That's
even
right.
seeing what's going on, because most people live their life looking over their shoulder, because their past defines their now instead of their now defining their now, and that building their future.
And the
And
brain doesn't know the
you know,
difference between imagination and
no.
reality. And so we think about the past, and we bring that right into the present. And our bodies respond in the same traumatic way as they did when the traumatic event may have happened. And when we think about all that, the terrible things that
Mhm.
happened in the past, the biochemical cascade of trauma is a 90-second process. Did you know that? It's 90 seconds. It's similar with some
Wow,
other
I did
mammals.
not.
When there's a threat, when there's a let's take a wild, that's an antelope. They see a lioness, all of a sudden, right at their feet, about to pounce. They bolt, and there's a chase, and say they evade, they get away. 90 seconds later, they're just looking to graze again. They're not looking over their shoulder. The biochemical cascade is over. The adrenaline, there's still some traces of adrenaline, but like the actual cascading of all of those events, all of those biochemical events, is done. Humans are the only ones who take something that happened a long time ago and we replay it in our mind. And when that happens, Trey, guess what we begin again? The 90-second biochemical
Yeah,
cascade
the
of
process
trauma.
all over.
And it's 90 seconds. And then when that's over, we want the dopamine back. We miss the pain. In NLP, we call it secondary gain. There's like some other thing you're gaining from hanging on to your trauma. And so we bring it back from the past to the present, 90-second biochemical cascade over and over and over and over again. And the brain doesn't know that it happened in the past. It just thinks it's happening now. So you're right. I think we take our traumas, and instead of working through them, we continue to feast on them in an unhealthy way. And that does not serve us in the least. It keeps us stuck.
One of my favorite quotes is, "You can't heal unless you face what broke you," and
That's
that's
great.
what it's what I go through a lot of stuff with, because what is you get triggered. That is that trauma. That's an invitation to, hey, there's something that happened that you didn't deal with, whether you just didn't deal with it or you were a kid and couldn't deal with it. And that's an invitation for, hey, there's something here for you to work on. Let's get through this together. And there's a lot of people that don't recognize that, and they live their life running from their triggers. That's why you have,
Yeah.
oh, I can't do, don't say that. That triggers me. Oh, that bothers me. So I'm not around that
Instead of
person because
sitting
it just,
with it, they
yeah.
instead of sitting with it and actually just feeling the feelings and working through it,
Hmm.
they'll avoid it. They'll avoid like the introspection or the self-reflection of the event. But when they're ready, they'll bring it back from the past and start the cascade again. So it really is, like you said, it's facing it. It's facing what broke us. It's facing the
Hmm.
trauma and just feeling through it. There's a lot of talk
Right.
about, and we hear it now a lot among men. And I think November is National Men's Mental Health Month, and we hear men encouraging other men to be vulnerable, to be emotional, and to talk about some of these things. And one might roll their eyes at that, but really, it's a beautiful message, because we are prone as men to just keep the blinders on of I provide, I protect. And if working through the trauma doesn't serve me in those things, then I don't want to do it, because it's just why take on
Right.
the pain if it's not going to help me provide, if it's not going to help me protect or be a good husband, good father, why even bring it back up? But man, it will come up. It will manifest itself in one way or another, more than likely multiple ways, until
Hmm.
we work through it. It really will. And it's like inner child work, right? We all have these inner children
Absolutely.
within us. They're still there. The
Hmm.
person we were when that traumatic event happened is still there. And they're just waiting to be seen and validated and worked through so that they can let it go.
Right.
Trauma
You get
can be
frozen
moved
in
on
time.
from. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I talk a lot in some of my content, and I say this, choose to be a healed person, not a broken person. Eh, Being broken, talking about your traumas, I see it a lot that some people marry their identity to being broken. It's like, this
Hmm.
terrible thing happened to me years ago, and I am a broken person because of it. And here's my healing journey. Okay. Yes, heal. But the healing journey is overused, that phrase. And because it's overused, people hear it and they go, okay, this journey takes a long time. There are some traumatic events, some that do take a considerable amount of time to get through, to work through.
Hmm.
Most don't take that long. most can be worked through faster than one might think. And so it's deciding that I'm going to be a whole person. That's the
Mhm.
power. Not I'm broken. Here's my healing journey. Let me share my healing journey for the next 20 years. It's
Right.
deciding to be healed and deciding to be whole. And that's a hard decision, but it's the right decision.
It, right. If transformation doesn't come, it's not a healing journey. You're still in another you get stuck in the acknowledgement of your trauma, but you really end up never doing anything with it.
Yeah,
It's just another it's kind of another form of a victim identity where
that's
you
right.
you wear that victim identity with like this badge. And there
Hmm.
is, and I don't want to come across as shaming people like or invalidating what people have gone through, because we all every I believe every person on this earth has trauma. Every person on
Of
this
course.
earth has some form of childhood trauma. And what people don't understand, trauma with a child is trauma. Comparison is one of the biggest enemies of growth and just growing as a person. So I never compare people's traumas, because if a kid feels abandoned, whether that was because you were beat as a kid or your parents just never acknowledged you, the trauma of abandonment is just as real to that child. That is just as traumatizing to that child in both situations. Being
Right.
abandoned, like to a child, your parents, they're your God. That's your world.
That's right.
Your
That's your
survival,
whole
your
world.
dependent, like that is all you know. Like what you will do, whatever you need to do to survive. And children are incapable of seeing their parents as the problem. They will always view
That's right.
themselves as the problem. So
Yes.
if you felt abandoned, invalidated, not loved or anything like that from your parents, that little child, like you said, like you get frozen in time. That part of you, and this is part of, to zero back in on authenticity, this is part of reclaiming your authentic self, is by going back to those moments. And you're pretty much reparenting that little child. You're reparenting that
100%.
little Trey or that little Eli, and being for that child what you needed your parents to be and they couldn't. And that's not hate towards your parents. That's just acknowledging that this is an area they did their best with what they knew how, but this is an
Yeah.
area where you're now the adult and you have to step in and be like, "Hey, we're going to fix this. This is
It,
what you
it,
needed." And sometimes
yeah.
healing is literally just acknowledging the emotion. It's
Yes.
literally just saying, "Oh, yeah, that's what this was," and that's the healing right there. Is just acknowledging the emotion in the first place that you disassociated from as a child because you didn't know how to process it.
I have a pretty clean 2-step process for helping people work through their traumas. And I say awareness is preparedness. It doesn't rhyme exactly, but it's close enough. Where being aware of something. So, for example, this conversation here, being aware that there's a childlike part of you, an inner child that has experienced trauma and is sitting there waiting for that moment to just be seen and heard and acknowledged. So that awareness is preparedness, and that prepares you to then now complete that work. Which leads me to my second step, which is completion is deletion. It doesn't delete what happened, but what it does delete is the part of you that is convinced that you can't overcome it. That part's deleted because with my clients, I have an exercise where I have their inner child come out, and first I have their inner child stand on the palm of their hand. So I have them sit with their hand up like this, and I have the child come. I know it sounds silly, but this really works. So I walk them through that, but then over time, the child, it's not really standing in the palm anymore. It's just standing next to them every time, and I don't even have to coach them through that. It just ends up being that way. Um, but having a specific place that is still a part of them for the child to physically be seen and be expressed is sort of a beautiful exercise. And a lot of times in this work, people really start to cry and break down because they, for the first time, they allow their child, the one that's still in there, that experienced this traumatic event. It's the first time this child is being seen in this way.
Mm.
And like you said, we parent ourselves, and I have my clients hug themselves, hug the childlike version of themselves and hold them and rub their back and tell them that they love them. And it's just to see the walls come down during this exercise is one of the most fulfilling things of my coaching practice. And it really is. There's so much ground and so much ground that is covered and work that is done in such a short period of time when they're successfully able to bring that child out. Um, and lastly, to your point about all children, we all experience trauma. It's so true. Trauma is just really, you could kind of boil down the definition of trauma to something that happened to us that we did not expect. Something negative that happened to us that we did not expect. And so when we're children, you may have done you may have done something or you did something where you were proud of yourself. You felt accomplished, like you did something great or something big, or where you were independent and you felt good about what you did. And you looked to your parent for validation, and their face didn't match what you felt inside. Instead, your father or your mother looked upset or disappointed, and they gave you a look that you weren't expecting, that didn't match what you were feeling.
Mm.
Something as simple as that is a traumatic event. So
Yeah.
we
Oh,
don't
yeah.
need to blow up the definition of trauma to be, oh, you only have trauma if it's some life altering, horrible thing.
Right.
Trauma is so common. We all have it.
Oh, yeah.
And it doesn't need to be a tale, an identity, a part of our identity. It's just something that we experienced, and it's something we can move on from.
No, absolutely. And that doesn't even mean parents are necessarily malicious, because this is part of,
Absolutely
like life
not.
happens. Life happens,
Yeah,
a child, and your example was perfect about, wanting validation for something a child did. If dad is in the middle of fixing the leaky faucet and water spilling on the floor and he doesn't have time to do it right now and he's stressed the heck out and he's I can't do this right now. I'll just go talk to your mom.
right.
The dad doesn't know that in that moment that
Of
boom,
course.
that child just felt unseen. And in the
Yeah,
grand scope of things, was that abuse? No, that was not abuse. But to
absolutely
that
not.
child
No.
who doesn't understand and has no understanding, they just, again, they didn't feel seen. And even traumatic experiences doesn't necessarily have to turn into a trapped trauma, so to speak, because it really depends on your parents too. Because bad things happen all the time, and it's more, do you have somebody there to help you process that? And um, one of the people I love, Gabor Mate. He's wrote
He's
a lot of
amazing.
books on childhood trauma, and he'll talk about he had did a podcast show with Mel Robbins, and who's another great lady who talks about stuff, and
Right.
she was talking about how she woke up as a child and she was abused sexually, and she's like, it was super traumatizing. He's like, well, wait, well, did you talk to your parents about it? And she's like, no. And he's like, well, why not? Well, I didn't feel like I could. And he's like, that was the trauma, not the event, which was horrible, but the real trauma was the fact that you felt so alone that you couldn't even talk to anybody about it. You couldn't talk to your parents about it, because things are going to happen, and that's part of teaching your children emotional maturity, is how to deal with things when it comes up to where it doesn't become a trauma. And that's working through your peace. You start to learn to be a rock. And that's also a thing with true masculinity, is being able to be that rock amongst chaos, because you're able to regulate your emotions. You're able to regulate what's
Right.
going on and be that for your family, be that example for your children. And so it's not everything has to turn into, oh, this trap trauma, even if somebody has something very traumatic happen to them. And I feel like
I
that
agree. Yeah.
confuses people, because I've known a lot of people who have gone through some pretty crazy stuff, and they're walking, it's like it never faced them,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
doesn't define who they are right now. And it's, oh well, things happen in life, and it doesn't change who I am. And I think
I
that's even
wished.
talks about, that's really what Jesus was talking about with, turning the other cheek. It wasn't accepting abuse. It was, no
Yeah.
matter what happens, nothing's going to disrupt your inner peace, because you are who you
Yeah.
are, you know who you are, and you're going to be that.
I love that interpretation. And I almost wish, I feel like the term trauma has been hijacked in a sense, um,
Mm,
and capitalized on. And uh, I wish we had a different word. I really do, because
right.
the way that trauma
It's
is
turned into
used
like a
now,
business selling piece, like you
100%.
have to
It's like a
sell it,
cottage
or
industry at this point. Trauma, yeah, trauma
or
is
a
a
badge of
buzzword,
honor. I have so
right?
much trauma, so I can
Yep,
be
yep,
a
yep, yep.
victim.
And to me, it's right there with that phrase, healing journey. I feel like that's been hijacked. It's like,
Right.
so I mean, you can have a great story, and your story should be a part of what you express to the world. I just think that the healing journey is not the story that should be what's projected to the world. I think if you're on a
Right.
healing journey, you focus on healing, focus on healing, get whole, figure out what your purpose is after that, and then make that your message. Make that your message.
Oh, absolutely. And if, like we said earlier, there has to be transformation after healing. If there's not transformation, then you never really healed. And the analogy
Yeah.
I love is, if you have a butterfly, you never see a butterfly sometimes acting like a caterpillar. It stays a butterfly because that's what it is. When it
Yeah.
transforms from that caterpillar to a butterfly, it's a new thing. If you're transforming and healing, and you have that transformation, you're no longer tethered or dictated by that past anymore, because that's not who you are. Which is, if you're not at that point where you have transformed, and that no longer is ruling your life, then yeah, you still have some healing, and you still have some work to do. But the goal isn't to be in that healing journey. The goal is to be in that transformation, to where it doesn't. And sometimes that healing journey can, we're always growing. I
Hmm.
think you're never not growing, but sometimes that transformation, and I think you hit on this earlier, that transformation comes with just acknowledging, all right, it's time to transform. All right, I've done
Yeah.
this. I've sat with it. I felt it. I've
Choosing
bawled
to
my eyes out
transform.
with it. Yeah, it's just, okay. It's time to just be this, and
Yeah.
let
It's
go of the
decided,
things that are no longer serving
resolved.
you.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
and that's sometimes that's harder than being in the going through the healing, is deciding to be
Because it's
okay
the real
and to be
work.
transformed. Right. Well,
Not
it's
to
almost,
minimize healing. Healing is work. Healing is work, and healing is important, and it's a beautiful, necessary part of working through the trauma. It's necessary, and people need to do it first. It is
mm,
it is easier to say, I am broken, I'm on my healing journey. That's easy. It is harder to say, I'm on a transformational journey. I'm resolved to be a new creature, and I'm working on that. That is harder. And that's what I mean by
well, because it's
it's the
new,
real
it's
work.
unknown.
Yeah.
Like, people don't know what people will actually, and it's almost like its own form of addiction, right? People get addicted to healing because it's a familiar thing, just like, you know being addicted to your pain. It's like, well, why are people wanting to stay in their pain? Well, it's because it's familiar. Anything new is scary.
Yeah.
New is
Yeah.
scary, and it doesn't feel safe. New does not feel safe. So deciding that you are transformed and to walk in that is something new. And some people, it's not even that it's a scary thing. It's I don't know what this is like. Like your nervous system would be like, I've never experienced this before. What do I do?
Right.
What is me?
Yes.
And that then you can start walking on that journey to find out who you are. And it's like, I don't know, go try out 50 different hobbies and see which one you love to do, you
Yes.
know, because
Yeah.
you'll
Go
find that
explore.
you might find something, because what you might find that some of your hobbies was from a past that no longer suits you, and that's no longer what you want. I mean,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I found that, man, there was a whole different type of food that I never had that I loved. I just started going to trying different foreign food places. You know, it can be something as simple as that, you
That's
know, where you
right.
start finding, wow, I really like this type of food. And I waited till I was 30 years old to try it, you know, like
Yeah.
whether there's so many things that you can, it's like you said in the very beginning of the episode, it's building that foundation. Once you have that foundation, the sky's the limit. Build
It
what
is.
you want, and that's part of the meaning of this life, is building that up and experiencing that. And you know, if you have a wife or romantic partner, pulling somebody in and building that up together, and then you can take bricks from the good from both sides and build a life together and experience the true full joy of this life without all the garbage.
Just the act of trying new food is really a form of a pattern interrupt. And it reminds me of this
Mm.
image I saw once that really beautifully illustrates how how powerful pattern interrupts are. It's an image of it's like a bunch of matches are lined up, and three of them are burnt, and obviously the fire started at one end and was burning through, and then the fourth match is just has been like pulled down a lot, like to where it couldn't catch fire, and of course the remainder of the matches perfectly fine and unburnt. Why? Because there was a
Mm.
pattern interrupts are powerful. um and so like just eating new cuisine is a pattern interrupt, and oftentimes it could be met with this experience of, where's this been my whole life? This is i I never knew
Right.
that this kind of food existed. And I for example, I was in my 30s the first time I tried naan bread, Indian naan bread. And ever since then, I've been pretty convinced I can survive solely off of naan bread if I needed to,
That
and be
stuff's pretty
happy
good.
and be thrilled about it. So it's just an example of a pattern interrupt. Now, let's take that concept and let's really make it meaningful, right? So, what would a pattern interrupt look like in our lives that serves us? Okay. Uh, for example, you might have, like me, I most of my life, I have had an unhealthy relationship with food, particularly sugar. And when I interrupt the pattern, as hard as it is, it tends to have ripple effects. And so when I do a 3-day water fast, for example, these are things I love doing from time. In fact, I'm due for one. After the 3-day water fast, I am much less inclined to eat sugar, even though I'm not necessarily trying not to eat sugar, but I've just interrupted the pattern enough to where I just don't do it as much. Now apply this to someone's career, apply this to someone's relationships or marriage, the way that they parent their children. I identify patterns that don't serve you, interrupt those patterns, and just see
Mhm.
what happens. And
Oh,
a
that
lot of times, the most authentic person, a version of you, is going to fill the space because your unconscious mind doesn't know what else to do because you've interrupted its pattern. So pattern
right.
interrupts very, very. I know you weren't talking about that, but you mentioned trying a new food, and it's just a perfect example of how powerful a pattern interrupt can be.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, something simple. I mean, if you're a parent and you have a pattern of getting really angry at your children, when that comes up, just breaking that pattern of instead of talking at all, just be like, I need a minute, go in the other room for literally just 60
Just
seconds.
just walk away. That's
And
right.
then
Just
and then and then and then come right back to it and you can give authentic you a chance at handling the situation
that's
and
right.
and just breaking that pattern or
And guess who else is impacted by that? Your kids.
oh, absolutely.
I
You're
mean,
just
that's
you're
it's ripple
teaching them
effects. It's ripples.
it's how to regulate your emotions too. And even the food thing, sometimes we're a big thing, and I've noticed a really common thing with people is they're taught from a young age that change is not safe.
Mm,
Because when they act different or do something that's yet another pattern. So something as simple as trying a new food and having some naan bread and think, oh my gosh, this is amazing. You're slowly teaching your nervous system to, hey, this is okay. It's okay to do
yeah.
this. I know, like one thing for me, it was actually it was Indian food. I had never had authentic Indian food before,
Why is it so
and
good?
it's so good. I'm like,
It
I
is.
because
It is.
I grew most I went out on authentic food was sushi, and I was still like 17 years old before I tried it, and I was like, oh, I love this stuff. This is good. So it's just sometimes it's just teaching yourself that it's okay for change. Change, Kim,
Yeah.
is not always dangerous. Like you can be okay because that's sometimes a lot of things that's stopping people from even attempting to break a pattern and getting out of that is they were taught from as a child that change is never safe. You will
Yep.
it'll be
Whether
met with
explicitly or
rejection.
implicitly. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's it's when you step out of patterns, it's actually really crazy to look at the world from instead of viewing the world through a more traumatic, your own trauma lens, and you get out of your patterns, you actually see that the world revolves around patterns. And
Yeah.
everything is a result of somebody's patterns. And when you can get out of that and be able to self-reflect and have regulate your own emotions, that's when you actually can even help other people and be a light to other people because it's almost like the monkey see monkey do when you're able to change like that and start to walk in your authentic self, the first people that are going to notice are the people closest to you.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, what's going on? What happened? Like you're just different. There's just something about you. Like what's going on? And that's just an invitation for a conversation. You can have those leaving a breadcrumb for them to start their own journey. And
Oh yeah.
that's man,
Yeah,
that could
it's
change the world
impactful.
right there.
Pattern interrupts are impactful because you show up differently in your world when you interrupt the pattern, and all the people who share your world with you, like you said, they witness that. A lot of times when we in movies we see there's a situation where someone needs to show courage, and everyone's looking around. Who's it going to be? Who's going to volunteer? Someone volunteers, and what happens most of the time after that? The next person stands, and then another one, and then another one, and then next you know everyone's standing. How many times have we seen that in the movies, right? So granted, that's dramatized, right? But the principle is real. When someone gains a backbone, it gives permission to others to gain a backbone. When someone exhibits change, positive change, it gives permission for other people around them
Mm.
to move toward positive change as well. So that's how important it is to just switch it up, to rewrite the program, to interrupt the
I s-
pattern.
And I see that really impactful with men too, because when it comes to self-reflection and all this stuff, there's kind of this stigma that going through your childhood actually feeling your feelings is somehow demasculating, and it means you're a wuss or not as much of a man, and you're not allowed to have feelings. So seeing true masculinity and healing and something like that, that really can break that mold of But that's one of the things I think is actual toxic masculinity is ignoring your feelings
Oh yeah,
because stuff's going to come out. It's either going to be in a healthy way or an unhealthy
that's
way.
right.
And
It'll show
unfortunately,
up one way or the other.
the unhealthy way is either, anger or in the form of some type of addiction, whether it be
Yeah,
alcohol,
self-destruction. Yeah,
drugs, pornography. I mean, it's going to come out in some way. So it might as well be the healthy way, and you can regulate in to where you're the one regulating it, and you're being there for yourself. You're showing up for yourself. And you know what? If somebody looks at you and says that, well, you're not a man because you have feelings, they got their own journey to go on. You don't even have to worry about it. Don't.
that's right.
I,
That's right.
so
Yeah, I can't think of anything more masculine, Trey, than doing the necessary emotional work in order to be a thriving provider and protector and being at peace in the journey. To me, that
mhm,
is beautiful masculinity.
absolutely.
Is being brave enough to feel the feelings, brave enough, courageous enough to rise up, put your armor of God on and face the devil if you need to, and just work through the scary, work through the hard, get it out, work through it, be done with it. Choose to be a whole
Right.
person, a healed person, so that you can be about the business of being the best man you can be.
I hear a lot of men say, "Oh, I'd die for my family. I would die for them." And but I don't hear a lot of people, well, I'm gonna live for them. I'm going to change for them. I'm gonna change those patterns. And I'm gonna, that's it's easy to say I go out in a blaze of glory where I'll, be on a
Yep.
pedestal and then it's over real quick. But the day-to-day hard work, that's that takes
Yeah.
some real discipline, commitment, and that's some tough stuff.
It reminds me of that line from Hamilton by George Washington. And he says, dying is easy, young man. Living is harder. Talking about, an overzealous Alexander Hamilton that wants to just go die for his country.
No,
That's what that
no,
reminds me of.
no, absolutely. Well, before we wrap up, where can people find to work with you, Eli?
I have just really enjoyed interacting with people on my social media lately. So, if people want to find me on Instagram, it's eli.bowman, and on Facebook, Eli Bowman, and X at Eli Bowman. That's where
Awesome.
I love sharing there. I love conversing with people. Send me a DM if we talked about something today that sparked your interest or that you thought was interesting. I would love to know your thoughts about what Trey and I talked about. So people can find me there.
Awesome. Well, Eli, it was a pleasure having you. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for everybody for tuning in. And we will see you guys on the next episode.